You won't believe what happened when the delivery guy came back to my workshop the second time. It wasn't the package that surprised me. It was what he told me, and it stayed with me ever since. Before we begin, tell me, what city are you watching from? I always love seeing where everyone is tuning in. And if you enjoy stories like this, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. It truly helps more than you know. The first time I saw him, he barely made it through the doorway without tripping over the stack of old wooden frames I kept meaning to move. My workshop isn't large, just a narrow room tucked behind my little storefront, fragrant with sawdust and warm varnish. I've been repairing furniture for nearly 20 years, and at my age, I've come to appreciate routines. But that day, mine shifted a little. He came in with a box balanced on one hand, smiling in that easy, open way some people have. Not too friendly, not too distant. Just enough to make me straighten up from my workbench and brush the dust from my palms. But this story isn't about that first visit. It's about the second one. It started late in the afternoon, sunlight slipping through the high windows and painting long stripes across the floor. I was smoothing the edge of an old rocking chair when I heard the bell on the door and footsteps I recognized faster than I'd admit. He stood there again, the same delivery uniform, the same warm expression, but something in his eyes looked different. He held no package this time, just a folded note in his hand. I remember feeling an unexpected flutter, more curiosity than anything else. I'm not the type to read into small moments, yet there was something almost thoughtful in his posture, like he practiced what he was about to say. "Ma'am," he began, then laughed softly, as if the word didn't fit. I came back because I wanted to apologize. Yesterday I rushed off too quickly. I felt rude." His words caught me off guard. Most people barely noticed me when they came in, let alone returned just to say something like that. I wiped my hands on an old towel and nodded for him to continue. He stepped a little farther inside, glancing around the room like he was trying to understand the life tucked between the shelves and scraps. "You've got a peaceful place here," he said. "Made me think of my grandmother's shop. She used to fix things too." For a moment, the workshop felt still, quiet in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. His tone wasn't dramatic or heavy. It was honest. That kind of honesty is rare these days. I told him he didn't owe me an apology, but I appreciated it, and something in me softened, realizing how long it had been since a stranger had spoken to me with that kind of sincerity. He smiled, the kind that holds a little gratitude in it. "I didn't want to carry the feeling with me," he said. "Sometimes small things matter more than we think." I didn't know then how true that was. He stayed only a few minutes before heading back out to his truck, but the echo of his words lingered like the faint scent of pine after I sand a tabletop. And as the door closed behind him, I caught myself wondering why the moment mattered at all, why a simple visit had tugged at something deep within me. I didn't have the answer. Not yet. But I would soon. After he left that afternoon, I tried to get back to sanding the rocking chair, but my hands kept slowing down. I'd replay his words in my head, wondering why they'd settled into me the way they had. Maybe it was because most days passed in a predictable rhythm: measure, sand, glue, repeat. His return had interrupted that rhythm, gently but unmistakably. 2 days later, the bell above the door chimed again. I didn't look up right away. Customers wander in often enough, and I've learned not to rush. But when I finally turned, I saw him standing there, holding another box. This time, though, he looked almost shy, as if he wasn't sure whether he should step inside. "I have an actual delivery today," he said with a small laugh. I nodded and motioned him in. The room was warm from the space heater tucked under my bench, and the smell of lemon oil lingered in the air. He set the box down gently, as if he knew everything in that room had a story attached to it. "Busy day?" I asked. "You could say that," he replied, but yours looks better." He glanced around at the wood pieces arranged on the walls. "Feels like a place where things get put back together." That struck me. I hadn't thought of my workshop like that in a long time. To me, it was simply where I worked, where I kept my hands busy so my mind wouldn't wander too far. But hearing it from him made me see the room through someone else's eyes, someone who seemed to understand more than he let on. He lingered a moment, rubbing his hands together as if warming them. I noticed how he kept looking toward an old stool near the window, almost asking without asking. "You can sit, if you want," I said. He hesitated, then took the seat, leaning forward slightly. Not too close, not imposing, just present. It felt respectful, like he was giving the space, and me, his full attention. "I hope you don't mind," he said. "It's just, your workshop reminds me of a time in my life I really miss." I set aside the sandpaper and leaned against the workbench, curious. "What time was that?" He took a slow breath. "My grandmother used to restore old clocks. I'd sit in her shop after school and listen to her talk about patience. She said everything has a rhythm, even things that seem broken." He smiled faintly. "I haven't thought about that in years." His voice held something warm but distant, like he was sharing a small piece of his past without expecting anything in return. And I felt something shift inside me. Not attraction, not longing, but recognition. A shared understanding of what it feels like to carry old memories quietly. "I know what she meant," I said softly. "Sometimes fixing something teaches you more than having something new." He looked at me then in a way that felt steady and thoughtful. "Exactly." For a few minutes, we simply sat in a comfortable silence, the kind that doesn't need filling. Outside, the late afternoon light dimmed, turning the workshop colors softer. I felt strangely aware of the moment, as if time itself had slowed to let us catch up with it. Eventually he stood, brushing off his hands. "I should get back on the road. I'm already behind schedule." "Thank you for stopping," I said, surprised at how much I meant it. He paused at the door and turned. "I don't know why, but I always feel calmer when I come here." And then he was gone, leaving a quiet warmth in the air that lingered long after the bell stopped ringing. I didn't move for a while. I just stood there, watching the door, trying to understand why a simple delivery route had begun weaving itself into my life in ways I hadn't expected. I hadn't planned for any of this, but something told me the story wasn't over yet. The next morning, I arrived at the workshop earlier than usual. I told myself it was because I had a long list of repairs waiting, but the truth sat quietly beneath that. I was thinking about him, about the calm in his voice, the way he spoke of his grandmother, the unexpected ease between us. It wasn't dramatic or sweeping. It was simply human, the kind of connection that grows in small, thoughtful moments. I opened the windows to let in the cool morning air. The sky was still pale, and a soft breeze carried the smell of damp leaves. I began sorting through a stack of wooden cabinet doors when the bell chimed again, early, far earlier than any delivery usually came. I turned, and there he was. He looked surprised too, as if he hadn't expected to see me open so early. He held a thermos in one hand and a paper bag in the other. "Morning," he said almost shyly. I was passing by and thought, well, I didn't know if he'd be here yet. I raised an eyebrow. "You brought breakfast?" He laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I figured you might skip it when you get busy. My grandmother used to say that people who work with their hands forget to take care of themselves." Something in the gesture, simple, thoughtful, touched me in a way I didn't expect. Not romantic, not sentimental, just kind. "You didn't have to," I said, even as I motioned him inside. "I know," he replied. "That's why I wanted to." We shared the small meal at my old drafting table by the window. The morning light softened the edges of the room, and the steam rising from the thermos gave the moment a quiet warmth. He told me a little more about his family, about how he'd moved to town only a year ago, how he still felt like he was finding his place. Sometimes, he said slowly, you meet someone who makes a place feel more familiar. His words hung gently in the air. Not suggestive, not forward, just honest. The kind of honesty that makes you pause and breathe. I told him about the early days of the workshop, back when my hands were stronger and the future felt less certain. He listened with an attentiveness that felt rare. No rushing, no checking the time. Just being there, fully present. At one point, he noticed an old photo on the shelf. Me in the workshop many years ago, hair tied back, covered in sawdust. You look proud, he said thoughtfully. I admitted, still am most days. For what it's worth, he said, it shows. Something in his tone carried a quiet respect, and I felt it settle in me, grounding and gentle. We didn't talk about anything dramatic, just life, work, memory, the little things people forget to appreciate. But there was a steady warmth in the conversation, a comfort I hadn't felt in a long time, not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. Eventually he stood, brushing crumbs from his hands. I should get moving. I'm already out of route. But he didn't leave right away. He lingered by the door, as if there was something more he wanted to say but wasn't sure how. Thank you, I told him. For breakfast. For all of this. He smiled with a gentleness that reached his eyes. Sometimes it feels right to show up, he said, even when you don't fully understand why. When he left, the workshop felt different. Not emptier, just changed in a subtle, meaningful way. As if something had shifted in the air, opening a space inside me I hadn't realized had been closed. I didn't know where this was leading, or if it was supposed to lead anywhere at all. But his words stayed with me long after the door closed, echoing softly through the quiet morning. Sometimes it feels right to show up. And sometimes the unexpected moments are the ones that teach us the most. The following week moved slowly, the kind of slow that makes you more aware of each hour. I kept wondering whether he'd return, though I tried not to admit that even to myself. I told myself he was just a kind young man who appreciated a quiet place, someone passing through my routine the way people do. Still, the memory of his visits had settled into the workshop like a soft echo. By Thursday afternoon, the day had grown cloudy, the light outside turning a gentle gray. I was polishing the surface of a small writing desk when I heard the familiar chime. The sound felt almost like a missing piece falling into place. He stepped inside, rain droplets on his shoulders, a sheepish smile on his face. I was hoping you'd be here, he said, closing the door behind him. I'm always here, I replied with a small laugh. It's the one predictable part of my life. He walked a little closer, taking in the room the way someone studies something they've missed. I've been thinking, he said carefully, about the conversations we've had. About how calm I feel here. I don't know if that means anything, but I didn't want to ignore it. I rested my hand on the desk, feeling the smooth wood beneath my fingertips. It means something, I said, even if we don't know what yet. He nodded as if relieved I understood. I guess I just wanted you to know that your kindness, it matters. More than you think. There was a quietness between us, but not an uncomfortable one. It felt like the kind of pause that lets truth settle. Outside, the rain pattered softly on the windows. Inside, the workshop held its warm glow, the scent of wood polish rising subtly in the air. He walked over to the rocking chair I'd been repairing the week he first came in. You finished it, he said. Just this morning. He ran his hand along the armrest, careful and respectful. It's beautiful. You're good at bringing things back to life. I felt something shift inside me, gentle but certain. Sometimes things just need patience, I told him, and someone willing to look closely. He looked up at me then, steady and sincere. That's what I meant, the first time I came back here. You notice things that matter." The moment that followed wasn't dramatic. No rush of emotion, no grand declarations. It was quieter than that, deeper. A shared understanding that some connections don't have to be loud to be meaningful. He stepped back, taking a breath. "I don't want to overstep," he said softly, "but if you ever want company, just someone to talk to, I'd be glad to listen. You've helped me remember things I didn't even know I'd forgotten." For a moment, I felt an unexpected warmth rise in my chest. Not excitement, not longing, but gratitude. The kind that grows when someone sees you clearly and treats that with care. "Thank you," I said. Maybe we can share more mornings like the one we had." His smile grew gentle and genuine. "I'd like that." He didn't stay long, just long enough for the air to shift once more, leaving a calm behind him. When he finally stepped back into the rain, I watched from the doorway as he walked toward his truck, the gray sky brightening just enough to cast a soft glow. When I returned to my workshop, the room felt different again, but this time it was a comforting kind of different. A sense of something new settling quietly into my life, not demanding attention, just offering possibility. His words stayed with me, just as they had from the beginning. Sometimes it feels right to show up. And sometimes the unexpected moments don't just interrupt your routine. They remind you that you're still growing, still capable of being moved, still open to what life places gently at your door.